Hey guys, break out your gear. We are going to spend just a few minutes. This is going to be a short one, just finishing up the lawmaking process from a few days ago. And then toward the end of the week, Thursday or Friday, we'll start in with the presidency, talk presidential powers, qualifications, that sort of thing. All right, so let's move on here, you guys. So hopefully last time around, you guys copied down the flow chart here. Okay, this actually I think is going to be pretty valuable to you, uh, especially since most of us are visual learners. So if you don't have that one down already, maybe pause me and then jot it down and then come on back. All right. So anyway, we're up to step 5 now. And what we're looking at here is we've gone through the debating process. We've gone through markup in committees. We've avoided pigeonholing that bill. And so now we're at the point where Congress is actually going to vote. Like I said, this is going to be pretty quick here. So generally speaking, you guys, all votes in Congress are public, which I suppose makes sense. Those people are our representatives, and so we want to make sure they're voting with our interests. All right. So, like I said, voting is always done publicly. Sometimes it's done electronically. Last week or 2 weeks ago, when the House and Senate voted on the financial rescue package because of the virus, that I believe was done electronically, although there was one House member that was threatening to make it a roll call vote, which means people would actually have to show up. But in any case, they're all public, all right, regardless of the format. Now, once the House and the Senate have both voted, now you run into a potential problem because both chambers had the opportunity to, I mean, if you guys go back here, both chambers had the, no, it won't let me go back. All right, whatever. Had the opportunity to, um, I lost my train of thought, modify the bill, okay, to amend the bill as it's working its way down through the process, especially in committee. That's where you generally see that kind of thing taking place. So you might wind up with, by the time you get to the bottom, two very different bills. Both the House and the Senate passed them, but they're two very different bills, especially on the Senate side. And so in any case, then from there it goes to the conference committee. Okay. Conference committee isn't mandatory. They only create them, the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader only create them when there is need for one. Because what the conference committee does is, as it says on the slide there, its job is to find a compromise, okay, between the two. And the product is actually known as a compromise bill. So in any case, they try to blend the most acceptable portions of the House bill with the most acceptable portions of the Senate bill, and eventually wind up with a compromise bill. From there, looking at the flow chart, it goes back to each chamber, the Senate and the House, and then from there it gets voted on one last time. All right, so let's play pretend. Let's assume all of that took place, no big deal, and now it winds up on the president's desk. Okay, I may touch on this next week in the chapter on the presidency. But in any case, the president usually has three options: to sign the bill, making it law; to veto it, meaning the president explains why he is not signing the bill and attaches a veto message and then sends that back to the House and the Senate, or he does neither. Okay, and if the president does neither, the bill just sits there on his desk for 10 days, and after 10 days, the bill becomes law all by itself. Which if we were in class, we would be having a big conversation, like why would the president do that? If he wanted to let the bill become law, why not just do it? Okay, why sit there for a week and a half and then wait for it to happen all by itself? Okay, and feel free, hit me up on Remind, you guys. Give me some possible suggestions or some possible scenarios where a president would allow a bill to become law without actually picking up the pen and signing it. And think of, like I said, shoot me some possible scenarios, different types of legislation where the president might try to do that. Okay. Let's see here. All right, last section here, you guys. Ordinarily, we'd spend an entire class period on some of the major criticisms of Congress. And so here we're taking a look at three general criticisms and one potential cure, okay, for those problems. So the first one, you guys, is known as pork or pork barrel legislation. In our book, it's sometimes referred to as earmarks or riders. These are essentially bills, or excuse me, amendments to the bills that benefit a small section of the country, maybe a particular state, maybe a particular county, perhaps a particular congressional district. It's called pork because if a Congress member gets a rider attached or an amendment attached to a bill that benefits his or her district or his or her state, the analogy is that he or she is bringing home the bacon. Okay, and you're looking at the political cartoon there, you guys. If it's your congressman bringing it home, it's bacon. Okay, if it's somebody else's congressman bringing it home, it's pork. It's the same thing, all right? The connotation is just different. Pork usually comes in the form of money, okay? Money to build, state parks or to, expand or widen a highway. That would be example. Those would be examples of pork, okay? Generally speaking, you guys, it's pretty unpopular in public opinion polling. But another way of thinking about it is that this is how you get stuff done in Washington. Okay, that it's not corrupt necessarily. I mean, it's not illegal, but that it's not a corrupt way of doing business. It's the way you do business. If I want to expand funding for, oh God, I don't know, let's say the Department of Health and Human Services or the National Institutes of Health or the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And it's close. I may have enough votes, but it might be tight. It might be close. You know what? I might include a couple of riders or a couple of amendments, some pork in that bill in order to get a few more Congress members on my side so that we can go ahead and pass this otherwise, worthy piece of legislation. Okay, so different ways of thinking about it. You just need to be mindful of it. I'm not asking you guys to take an opinion on it or stake out an opinion on it, but we just need to understand what it is. The second one is sometimes known as reciprocity. In Washington, they usually refer to it as log rolling. Log rolling is essentially the idea that a member of Congress will vote for your bill now in exchange for you voting for their bill later on in the future. Okay, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I'll help you out now, you help me out 6 months from now when I've got a different bill. That's known as log rolling, sometimes called reciprocity. The College Board uses that term a lot on the AP test. And so, oftentimes people see this as also a negative thing, that people are not necessarily voting for bills because they're good or worthy bills. Simply, they're doing it because they're doing it as a favor, to somebody else. And the fear is then that sometimes some potentially sketchy bills, wind up getting passed just because of senators and representatives doing favors for one another by voting for each other. Okay. The third one, you guys, is the general inefficiency that we see in Congress. We already know that Congress has a 2-year time limit, okay, maximum, to pass any legislation. And sometimes it takes months or years, well over a year, close to 2, in order to get legislation passed. And that generally irks a lot of Americans, especially if they're Americans who are, waiting on a particular bill. So in any case, Congress works slow, but Congress was designed to work slowly, right? And it's something we need to be mindful of. And then, so one of the potential, cures of this that gets thrown around all the time is term limits. Limiting the number of terms that a member can serve. Their terms are already baked into the Constitution. 2 years for representatives, 6 years for senators. But let's say hypothetically you were to limit, a senator to 2 6-year terms, or to limit a representative in the House to 6 2-year terms. And that, the argument in favor of this is, or one of the biggest arguments is that you're getting fresh blood in there all the time. There's always a certain amount of turnover. We talked about a week ago or so about, the unlikelihood that a member of Congress is going to be voted out of office. Well, this is one way to fix that. Okay. Another argument against this, though, okay, or an argument against term limits is that right around the time members of Congress actually get good at their job, those of you guys who work, think about it. Were you any good at your job at the very beginning? Did it take some time? Members of Congress are the same way. They got to learn the ropes. They got to learn the procedures. They got to make contacts. And so an argument against term limits is that right around the time these people get really good at their job, okay, become effective and actually benefit their states or work for the benefit of the country and are really, really good at what they do, then we're going to pluck them out of there, and send them back home to their states. So, there's a strong argument to be made against term limits. Now, the thing is, you guys, most constitutional lawyers will tell you that if you were to enact term limits, okay, and here's perhaps part of the reason why it hasn't happened yet, you would need a constitutional amendment. Okay, there's nothing in the Constitution about term limits, so if you were going to create some, you'd probably have to amend the Constitution to do that. So at this point, hopefully there should be a little light going on over your head where you're thinking, wait a minute, what does it take to amend the Constitution? Well, you need 2/3 of Congress, 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate to vote in favor of that. Okay, forget about the states. Don't even worry about that part of the process. Just back it up to the Congress section. What is the likelihood that a member of Congress is going to vote in favor of a constitutional amendment that is going to essentially end their political career in Congress? I don't know, although I think it's pretty unlikely that you're going to see that. Okay, so that's a couple of reasons why it hasn't happened yet. One more practical and another one more philosophical. All right, next time we talk, we will be dealing with, what will we be dealing with? We're going to take a look at the presidency. We're probably going to start off with presidential powers and presidential qualifications late this week. Then next week, we'll spend most of the time on the presidency itself and the bureaucracy, okay, that literal army of government officials that help the president to enact his policies. And then from there, we'll wrap it up with about a week or so on the federal court system. Right around that time, that should put us about 2 weeks or so before the AP test. I'll be sending out review materials to all of you guys. Beyond the regular homework, we'll probably be wrapped up with homework by that point, and you guys will get sort of a large, comprehensive study guide. I'll shoot that out to you guys, a couple of weeks before the AP test, and then we'll do some practice to get you guys ready for it. Okay. Hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks for playing along.